concerned about the bruised egos here. The real question is, will the details of the deal persuade at least 3 and probably 4 or 5 more council members to support it? And what changes will the team agree to make to sweeten the deal for the district?
Not my beat.
Joining us live from Capitol Hill, where there will be a counter protest tonight, if you will, an event saying, no RFK Stadium, no football stadium for the Commanders. Tom Sherwood, who is the political analyst for the Politics Hour on WAMU, is back with us. Tom, thanks so much for your time and your expertise. Appreciate it, sir.
Hello, Craig, and hello, everybody.
So, Tom, I'd like to, if we could, start with a bit of a civics lesson. I went to public school, but it wasn't in the District of Columbia. And so the inner workings of the D.C. Council and how it interworks with the mayor's office and then ultimately the federal government, which has a lot of power in D.C. as well, is something that I've become more and more aware of, having lived here and specifically covering this story, not to mention trying to be a good citizen over the last, especially 5 years that I've been an actual district resident versus just being in the area. But it's something that I think we should explain as a starting point so that everyone's on the same page here. Why did ultimately, what are the powers that be here? Who has control over what on a surface level that is relevant to I would say this story, the Commanders trying to build a football stadium on the RFK Stadium site?
And I know you paid attention when you were in school.
I did.
The simplest thing to say is, in Virginia, in Maryland, there are governors, and then there are state legislatures. In the District of Columbia, a place that is ultimately controlled by Congress, there is an elected mayor and an elected D.C. council, which has all the powers of a city council, a county council, and a state legislature rolled all into one. And so the mayor is the executive who runs the city. The D.C. council passes the laws and approves the mayor's budget. And that's where they come in with the football decision about bringing the Commanders back to RFK. The mayor at the big event yesterday, and I have to say I was a little bit of a fanboy when Joe Gibbs walked in, but yesterday the mayor and the NFL announced her plans to bring the team back from Maryland into D.C. at the old RFK site with the new stadium. But the plan has to be approved by the 13-member council. And just make it a little more complicated, currently there are only 12 council members sitting because one of them was thrown off for violating all the council rules. But there are 12 sitting D.C. council members who have full authority to say yes to the new stadium or no.
All right, and they have to get 7 yeses of the now 12.
Yes, they have to have a simple majority vote, 7. 4 of the council members attended the big event yesterday. Mm-hmm. So we can presume, unless something terrible happens and changes their mind, the mayor starts out with 4 out of the 12 votes. He needs 3 more, and they're going to vote by the end of July.
So this then begs the big question that I would love to get an answer from you, Tom, about, which is the Commanders lobbying. Obviously, first they had to lobby Congress so they could unlock the land so that any of this can happen in the first place, and we've been covering that part of the story. I mean, not just for the past couple of months, but we've been covering that story for 10 years because that was the first step that had to happen. Then they seemingly worked with the mayor, who was on their side to begin with. She wants this to happen. But according to Phil Mendelson, the chair of the D.C. City Council, they haven't been consulted basically at all. He had one brief meeting with Josh Harris at some point late last week. Why did the Commanders not work both the mayor's office and engage the mayor's office in helping them, since she's on their side, and start working on D.C. City Council sooner versus having this big press event and having all the council people be like, hey, what about us?
Well, you have to point out that Phil Mendelson, when he was a council member, voted against every major vote on the baseball ballpark. He voted against it. And so there wasn't much reason to consult him on the initial plan. The mayor was working out the details. I know several council members who heard from the team and heard from the mayor's office during this negotiation. But the fact is, the mayor makes this decision for the contract, and then the council follows along and says what it thinks about it and suggests changes or votes it up or down. Mendelsohn and the mayor don't get along very well. He's constantly criticizing her. There's a big fight now over her budget, which is due in the next day or so. And so they have not gotten along. I can see why the mayor hasn't included him. I think some staff members have been apprised of this, but this is a classic governor, council, legislative battle. The mayor's making a decision. The council now gets to get into the ring now and have its say. And so I don't think it's a big deal that the mayor didn't reach out because, frankly, if the mayor reached out, I would hope I would have gotten the leaked information and I would have reported it. So I'm not too concerned about the bruised egos here. The real question is, will the details of the deal persuade at least 3 and probably 4 or 5 more council members to support it? And what changes will the team agree to make to sweeten the deal for the district? Coming in with a $2.5 billion plan to oversee the building of a stadium and to be a master developer for most of the land around there was a good start. But this is just the opening shots of this negotiation.
Tom Sherwood, WAMU, he is a host and reporter and their political analyst for the Politics Hour on that fine radio station with us here on the Hoffman Show. And so I guess, Tom, the part of the reason you were the first person I thought of to have this conversation with is because you know the normal course of business. Those of us in the sports world are parachuting in every couple of months when something is happening here and trying to make sense of it. This is your world all the time. So you're saying it is normal for the mayor to do something and then it go to the council versus council involvement. And now we have reached the council involvement phase and there will be theoretically changes to this plan, and this is all in the normal order of how things go, hemming and hawing from Phil Mendelsohn and others aside.
Yes, it's quite normal. And when there is expectation, not confirmed, but expectation that the mayor will propose her 2026 budget on Thursday. And that's for the budget of the city that takes effect in October. And in that budget, you will have the money, I believe, to get this agreement underway. But they need the council's vote by the late July because the council goes in recess in late July until September. So they want the council to say yes or no on this deal by mid-July, certainly late July at the latest. But this is typical legislative sausage making.
And boy,
Don't
is
ask
it
me
fun.
About the NFL draft. I couldn't explain all the ins and outs, but it's a lot more than someone standing up on the stage saying, we take this player, we take that player. There's all the behind the scenes, 25 people on computer screens and negotiating all that stuff. The same thing happens in the legislative system.
So I saw some polling data that our colleague JP Finley had put out from a group, I believe it's called Heart Research. I'm sure that the team was helping, and the city and the mayor's office was helping with this because it was very, very favorable to them. And they say, oh, if the 80% of the funding is going to come from private sources, aka the Harris Group, do you support the stadium returning to, or the team returning to RFK? And 80% of the people say yes, and then they get to be like, look how supportive everybody is. I think that is not the right question, Tom Sherwood. I think the right question is, can they actually do that? What are the chances that the funding mechanisms, and the other part of that poll question, by the way, was there would be no tax increases, that this could be funded for, there'd be no cuts to services, all these things that are being promised. Realistically, how likely is it that they can do this in the way that they have laid out when you saw the literature that was handed out with some of the funding mechanisms and all of that yesterday at the mayor's event?
We're still, the council members rightly, and members of the media and others are waiting for more details, exactly what this will be. There are parts of it, like selling seats and where that money goes and how the stadium will be financed and what money will pay back the stadium. So if the team puts up money, funds the money to build the stadium, it needs to get its money back in some way. So it will master develop some of the land there with hotels and different things, and they will get some of that money there to help pay off the bonds that they'll float to build the stadium. It gets quite complicated. It's not a cut and dry deal like a house mortgage. And so a lot of the details still have to be explained in maybe hearings at the council going forward. So, but it's not an unusual deal. It's called tax increment financing in some ways, whether you'll build a stadium and the commercial projects that go around it, hotels, retail, and housing, and some of the money earned from those advanced things being built will help pay off the bonds.
So if
this is the biggest private industry deal in the history of the city, but it involves a lot of city money over 6 years.
Right, and
it's not you just write one check at the start. This money will be spent over a long period of time. The mayor has said she can do it, and I should point out, every mayor since Tony Williams in 1999 has said he or she wants the team back into the district. And Mayor Bowser is, of course, the first mayor to make that happen. And so it's just a huge deal. But all of the money involved, it's a massive development. There are accountants out the wazoo and lawyers involved with this. And we need to have a full explanation of it. I'm a district citizen. I've said on my radio show, I'm for the team coming back to town. But the deal has to be good for the district citizens. It can't just be a giveaway to the NFL. And one of the things I don't like is that the NFL at this point, the Josh Harris group, is headquartered in College Park. And I think if they're going to be a real partner with the city, they not only have to play in the District of Columbia, they have to bring their business into the District of Columbia and not treat the district as a stage or a tourist thing where they come in only on Sundays or special events. They need to be a real partner with the city. So again, the financing, the detailed financing, needs to be fully explained to the council members and to the public.
So as Tom Sherwood,
we just got the first taste yesterday.
Yeah, as Tom Sherwood, WAMU, is with us. I think that's interesting because Josh has made clear, like, he likes the fact that now the practice facility is in Virginia. He hopes the stadium is in D.C. And then that they have their business operations in Maryland because he likes being in all of the DMV and supporting all three jurisdictions. But there was also some reporting I saw, Tom, that he has been involved in doing some non-stadium work within the city, that he's actually been trying to be a good corporate citizen, being involved beyond this. Would that be enough for you to say, like, hey, maybe we won't move our offices, but maybe we move some of it. Well, there obviously is going to be stadium staff that works year round in the city if the stadium is here. And if you are involved in the city on a more regular basis, then that would be good enough to satisfy, I guess, you personally in that view that you just expressed with us?
I think it's not a good idea where you're asking the district citizens in government to put up well over $1 billion into your project, that you treat us like an absentee landlord, where you come into town when it's convenient, but that you basically are an organization in Maryland where any corporate taxes that you pay go to Annapolis instead of the district. And then, they've got this Ashburn facility for a long time. That's 44 acres. I think there's like 4 outdoor practice fields and an indoor practice field. And there's some suggestion that some of that could come to the District of Columbia. And I don't think many people know this. I just learned it myself this week, that the team ownership has filed some paperwork in Virginia and in Loudoun County to ultimately turn that practice facility of 44 acres into data centers.
Yep.
That the whole area around Loudoun County has those massive warehouse-style data centers. And they've already filed some notice that in some time in the future they want to put data centers on their property. So that could suggest that in the future they may move some of that activity to the RFK site. But I still think if you want to be the Washington, the nation's capital team, your company ought to be here. I don't want to get too far off on that, because the main thing we should, as you talk about, is will the council come together and have enough votes? A lot of there were like 6 to 10 major votes on the ballpark and bringing the baseball team here. And of those 6 to 10 votes, some of them, or most all of them, were 7-6, the 13 council members. 7-6. If one person had changed his or her mind, we wouldn't have the Nats celebrating their 20th year here.
So what do we think the likelihood is that this ultimately happens? Because that's where the rubber meets the road. Now we go full punditry here. How do we think that this vote breaks down, and do the Commanders ultimately get what they want, or some version of it? But the main headline being Commanders return to RFK finalized.
I would say, using my online FanDuel account, if I were betting $100, I would bet that it will come to the city, that they will reach agreement. I think there will be some concessions from the team and from the mayor to maybe bring some of the wavering council members, because, it often happens when some big deal happens, the legislators in any state legislature or Congress, they want to put their thumbprint or their footprint on something so they can say, we made the deal better. And I voted for it because I did X or I did Y to make the deal better. So again, we're at the beginning. We're at square one of this, of the negotiations to get the council to approve it. Some of the council members will say, can you do this? Can you do that? Zachary Parker, who's a Ward 5 council member in Northeast Washington, has already mentioned what I just said, that he wants the team to actually physically, legally be in the District of Columbia and not be in College Park. If that's enough for him, I don't know. But that's the kind of stuff that's going to be going on. But my $100 in FanDuel, if there were a bet there, I would bet that it's going to get done, but we're going to see some bumps in the road before we get there. And I think we'll see some significant changes to sweeten the deal to bring them along.
Do you think that those and you're the perfect person to ask, Tom, because you might be the one who folks tell things to. Do you think we'll learn some of those things along the way, or are we going to wake up one day in July and this vote's going to happen and we'll learn about it afterwards? I
think we'll find out. They have kept a lot of this mostly secret till Mark Seagraves from Channel 4 broke the story last week. They initially were going to make this big announcement last Wednesday, but I'm not sure of all the reasons. I think I know the reasons, but I'm not sure I can say. But they postponed it last Wednesday till Monday. So they did that. But I just think we're going to see a lot of things happen, and some of them will be made public. Again, I'm using the baseball ballpark because that was significant. It was a tense battle. Vincent Gray, who was a council member then in Ward 7, he was on the fence. Well, I'm going to do this. What's in it for me? What's in it for my constituents? And the team promised that if they came to the district, they would open up a baseball academy in Ward 7. And they have that academy. It's been there for, I don't know how many years, but, hundreds of young people have gone through the baseball academy in Ward 7. And that was one of the things that Vince Gray required before he would vote for them.
Interesting. So it's
I don't know if you have a contract, but, you negotiate on direct money, you negotiate on side benefits and things like that. That's what's going to happen with the legislature.
More legislative sausage to be made. Tom, always appreciate your perspective, your insight, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you here over the next couple months as we try to learn more about this and see if this thing does indeed get across the finish line and you get your money back from FanDuel, so to speak.
Okay. I am going, you mentioned at the start of this, I am up here on Capitol Hill at the Hill Center, which is at 9th in Pennsylvania. There is a gathering of people who are opposed to this stadium, saying, like Charles Allen, the council member, has said, and Brianne Nadeau, the council member, who have said, there's better things to do with that land. We can build housing and retail, something like the wharf that was built in other places. We don't need a stadium. These are the people who are going to campaign against it, and we'll have more news on that tomorrow.
Indeed. And
have a good night.
Yep. Thanks so much, Tom. Really appreciate it. Tom Sherwood with us here on the Hoffman Show. And as I've said before, I don't think this land gets unlocked into this stage right now if the Commanders are not involved. And Josh Harris can say all he wants, like, we think it's the right thing for the district. We want to be good citizens. And if, the city votes that we don't get to use the land even though we helped unlock it, then the city is the city. And, like, morally, that is the correct stance. If I was Josh Harris and I put in the kind of effort and paid the kind of money to the lobbyists and the strategists and all the things to get that land unlocked, and then I didn't get to do it, I would be livid. So I'm very curious to see how that, hey, now that we have the land, we can do something else without a stadium with it argument actually goes. But that's the battle of the next 3 months. We'll be following it here on the Hoffman Show.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.